Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's the biggest cash prize we've given away to date. An incredible £20,000 that you could use however you like. And because it's totally tax-free, every single penny will be in your bank account to do whatever you like with. £20,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours this summer. Hurry, you've got to be in it to win it. For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text PRIZE to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
Yeah, for dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Very good evening to you from the newsroom. It's 7 o'clock exactly, and we will start with the story leading the news tonight that the Iranian president and the foreign minister of Iran are missing after their helicopter crashed in the mountains in the north of the country. Ibrahim Raisi was travelling across the far northwest of Iran following a visit earlier to Azerbaijan. A huge search is now underway involving Red Crescent rescue teams and the military, but poor weather, we understand, is hampering their efforts. Teams of police have now taken to the mountains on foot, looking for the president and the foreign minister. We're also hearing in the last few minutes from Iranian officials telling state TV there that contact has been made with one of the passengers and one of the crew members of the president's helicopter, making contact, they say, on several occasions. We will bring you more on that throughout the course of this evening. Meanwhile, in the UK, the families of those affected by the infected blood scandal have been holding a vigil this evening ahead of an independent inquiry whose final report is out tomorrow. The scandal has been the subject of the biggest ever public inquiry in the UK after tens of thousands of people were infected with contaminated blood. The Chancellor has vowed to compensate victims with a £10 billion package. Jeremy Hunt's claimed it was part of fulfilling a promise he made to a constituent who died after contracting hepatitis C. Well, one of the victims, Joan Edgington, has discussed the effect it's had on her.
All have different and various physical things, but it's the mental, the anguish of what we're going through, and that in itself is a support if you have the friends' support, but also, as mentioned, that the Red Cross are there at the hearings, and we can now go for counselling, and a lot of people I know go for counselling of just it's the uncertainty of your future and what it's done to you, and the stability of your mind in a way.
We've heard today that staff in the NHS will be told to work evenings and weekends under Labour's plans to slash waiting lists. Hospitals would be asked to share their staff and pool their waiting lists as part of a £1.1 billion drive to provide an extra 40,000 appointments each week. Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting has also promised to protect whistleblowers and to cut the NHS's reliance on migrant workers.
£1.1 billion paid for by clamping down on tax avoidance and also closing non-dom loopholes as well, and that will enable us to put £1.1 billion directly into the pockets of NHS staff to deliver those extra appointments at evenings and weekends using an approach that's been tried and tested at the London hospital I can literally see out of my office window in Westminster, and therefore an approach we need to see available to patients right across the country, not just in London. And that does come with a cost, and that's why we've made this commitment as our first step on the journey to busting the Tory backlog and cutting NHS waiting lists.
Wes Streeting there, speaking to GB News earlier this morning. In other news, a 14-year-old boy has died after getting into difficulty in the River Tyne in Northumberland. A huge search involving police, fire crews and mountain rescue teams was launched on Saturday. Another boy, who's 13, was rescued, but he's currently ill in hospital critically. The body of the 14-year-old was later found in the water. To the US, where America's first black astronaut has become the oldest person in space, 60 years after almost being picked for an early NASA mission. At 90 years old, former Air Force pilot Ed Dwight experienced a few minutes of weightlessness with 5 other passengers on board. That was on a capsule operated by Amazon billionaire Jeff Bezos. The brief flight from West Texas was Blue Origin's 7th time taking tourists into space. And finally, some sports news. Manchester City have won their record 4th consecutive Premier League title tonight after beating West Ham 3-1 on the final day of the season. Phil Foden scored twice in the first half to help ease nerves at the Etihad. Nearest challengers for the trophy, Arsenal, scored late to get past Everton 2-1, but it wasn't enough. That's the latest from the newsroom for now. Another update at 8 o'clock. Until then, you can sign up to GB News Alerts. Just scan the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Labour will fix the NHS by telling everyone to work at weekends. Taxpayers spend £300,000 a day on the COVID inquiry, and police are visiting the homes of kids who are absent from school. This is Free Speech Nation. Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Cressida Wetton, standing in for the one and only Andrew Doyle. On any given day, I'm disappointed I'm not Andrew, but today I've disappointed a whole room full of people, so that's a bit of fun. This is the show where we take a look at culture, current affairs and politics, and, of course, we'll have the latest from those lovable culture warriors. They've been up to their usual tricks this week by trying to cancel judges' wigs, among other things. Coming up on the show tonight, author Harry Sol Markham will be here to tell us about how a book he spent months working on was suddenly dropped due to concerns about some of the issues it tackled. It's Mental Health Awareness Week, and we're going to speak with celebrity chef Jameson Stocks about the importance of looking after that aspect of your health and how that relates to his own experiences. And we'll learn about the truly shocking case of the Iranian rapper who's been sentenced to death for criticising the Iranian regime and supporting women's rights. And, of course, myself and my fantastic panel will be answering questions from our wonderful studio audience. My studio guests this evening are Jonathan Cogan and Lewis Schaefer. All right. How are you guys?
Can I just congratulate you on smashing the glass ceiling? It's such an inspiration to see you in this chair.
Thanks, Jonathan. I think it's wonderful what you're doing for the mentally challenged as well. Lewis,
I'm not doing that much, let me be honest.
How have you been enjoying this?
I'm next after you, so I've got a bright future ahead of me.
Excellent. OK, here we are, the best and the brightest. OK, let's get some questions from our studio audience.
Oh, no.
The first question is from Gavin.
Yeah, good evening. My question is, can Labour be able to fix the NHS?
Can Labour fix the NHS? OK, so will Labour's new plan fix the NHS? Shadow Health Secretary, I haven't had a drink, I promise. West Streeting says Labour will slash waiting lists by telling staff to work evenings and weekends. They think this will allow an extra 40,000 appointments a week. Here's Wes Streeting on the Camilla Tominey show this morning.
£1.1 billion paid for by clamping down on tax avoidance and also closing non-dom loopholes as well, and that will enable us to put £1.1 billion directly into the pockets of NHS staff to deliver those extra appointments at evenings and weekends using an approach that's been tried and tested at the London hospital I can literally see out of my office window in Westminster.
OK, Lewis, thoughts on this? Do you think Labour are going to save the day?
No. I mean, the NHS is you can't save the NHS because they're offering something. They're offering the thing that people want the most is to be able to live. If you say to someone, we're going to help you live with the NHS, who's going to say no to that? So, no, they don't have a chance in the world.
You haven't got much faith in Wes Streeting's plan.
No, and I'm a major user of the NHS. Yes, I am. How do you think I got to look this good?
No, they did plastic surgery on the NHS.
Yeah, I didn't know it was available.
No, I go there, I get major... It's great for testing, basically. But it's not, there's no cure. The only cure we have is to eat a proper diet of meat.
Almost 5 minutes into the show before we got to meat. OK, Jonathan, how about you? Do you feel optimistic about Labour's plan?
I feel very optimistic. I think if I don't read what they're suggesting, I can just be positive and hope they fix it. I think the more money we throw at the NHS, the better it's going to go. I think just keep printing the money and keep piling it on till the money is completely meaningless. And then, yeah, then it'll be the socialist utopia we've all been hoping for.
That's an interesting point, because one of my concerns, Lewis, is if we're going to have people working at weekends doing overtime, they're not going to do that for nothing, are they? And Labour have already said they're going to pay overtime. So this is going to cost us a lot more money, isn't it?
You know what? I changed my mind after listening to what Jonathan said.
It does happen, yeah.
But no, because they're working on weekends already, kind of. I mean, it's like it's not that there's a backlog of things. There's a backlog of patients. People are just too sick. I mean, you're English people. Not English, all English, but you look horrible.
I'm pretty sure there is a backlog. I think that's really one of the current features of the NHS.
There's a backlog based on demand. Nobody wanted those kind of expensive type devices to do the things. They didn't have those 50 years ago, 75, 100 years, whatever. They didn't have it, so they've been having it now. What?
Which devices are you talking?
Whatever, the kind that they plug into the walls and they rub on your body and they tell you you're going to die. I don't know what they have.
That is Dr. Lewis Schaefer there. Fantastic. Are you worried, though, that if a doctor's been working all weekend, they're not going to be in... They're not going to have a rest? They're not going to be in a good state to treat?
No. My best friend's wife is a doctor on the NHS, for the NHS, and, yeah, it seems crazy. It's like all kind of late-night shifts, you know, doing a night shift and a day shift, stuff that would be... you know, completely frowned upon in almost any other industry, but there's such a demand and there's what you're going to do, not help people, then yeah, you just get overworked. That's a bit serious for me, isn't it?
It's very serious.
Okay, what if we all stop injuring ourselves on the weekend? Then it'll be fine. There we go. That's more my speed, isn't
Jonathan Cogan, very unlikely to stop injuring himself on the weekend,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Our next
It's the only way I can
question-
finish. Yeah.
Our next question is from Ryan. Hi, Ryan.
Evening all. Should primary school children receive sex education?
Wow, OK. So should primary school children receive sex education? What do you think?
I think if it's factual, yes. I think if it's highly contested gender ideology, no.
Right, OK. So should children receive sex education? The government has this week been outlining guidance for how sex education should be taught in schools. Age limits are to be introduced for the first time, and schools will be told how to teach, not to teach children any form of sex education until the age of 9. Teachers will also will not be able to teach children that they can change their gender identity. Jonathan, you were 9 not long ago. What do you think?
Not too long ago. Well, my sex education at school started actually in year 3 when I had about 7 or 8, where I walked into the art closet and there was a substitute teacher, Mr. Buckingham. Oh, I learned a lot that day when I saw. I don't
think that was on the curriculum, was it?
No, they were on quite a lot of the art materials. But basically, it was a bit distressing, also intriguing. But until year 6, when we had our actual, and we saw, we saw a lady giving birth. And yeah, that's part of the video, and that's when I decided that I'm gay. So yeah,
Lewis, you're
but that's not sex education.
Well, no,
seeing
like
a woman giving birth, that's not what sex is. Sex is the after effects of that. If they show the beginning part of it, I don't think they should teach anybody sex education in school. I don't think kids should be going to school. I don't think there should be a state-run school system. I don't trust the government of any country, let alone this country, whether they're Labour or Conservative, to teach my kids anything.
Well, that's very interesting, because I would have maybe spoken up for your child and said that in this scenario where there's no sex education, they might not get the basic facts of life.
From me?
Well, they might get something a bit odd, and now I wonder whether we need a curriculum so that all children are getting a basic level of education.
Just give them a copy of Penthouse magazine when they're 10 and let them...
Well, this is exactly the argument, isn't it, in favour of sex education. And some people are saying that the problem with putting a limit and saying you can't start this until they're 9 is that if an 8-year-old comes to you with a difficult question, as a teacher, what do you do?
When I was 15 in New York, and we had a teacher who was a jazz music aficionado, and he taught us about all the jazz artists. And
you've never had jazz since?
Exactly. It was like, oh my God, I'm learning this in school. Yuck. It would have been better if I hadn't learned it. It's best just to stay away. It's best to make school a lot less open. We don't need. I'm not even kidding when I'm saying this.
I don't know. I think teaching theory is fine, but the practical exam is too much. That's what I think.
Yeah.
OK, moving on. Our next question is from Jane.
Good evening.
Hi, Jane.
My question is the COVID inquiry worth £300,000 a day?
Right, great question. Is the COVID inquiry worth £300,000 a day? A report by The Times has revealed the staggering amounts the taxpayer is forking out to fund the ongoing COVID inquiry. The inquiry has so far cost us £94 million at a rate of £300 a day and is not expected to produce a final report until 2026, meaning a total cost of £200 million could be in the offing. Jonathan, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. What is the best case scenario? What can we hope to establish from this inquiry? Is it whether or not we were justified in the actions that the government took, or is it more to see, where the corruption was? Basically, if it stops another 2 years of tyranny from happening again, I think it's money well spent. If it doesn't, then obviously just print more money. Why not? Just print more money.
Well, this is a great
Mickey
question, isn't it, Lewis? What exactly are we trying to get to the
I actually
bottom
asked you,
of?
Cressida. What was the answer?
I stand with you. I think the answer should be that we look back. I mean, personally, I'm very anti-lockdown. I think I've ranted about that quite a lot to you. I don't think it's something I would want to repeat again. But there are other people who feel that the purpose of the inquiry is to answer questions about the spread of COVID. What do you think, Lewis?
No. The whole thing is just to delay. The last one of these investigations, you love them here. You trust some woman and say she's the woman, and then it's like this thing is going to cost $200-300 million. I mean, after a while, that's you're thinking about some real money there. 300, and that's basically the Tories' cocaine budget for a year. So we could be spending that money.
I don't think that's an official statistic, is it?
I don't think it is, because the Labour spends the same amount of money. That's what makes this country great, is that.
Is our spending. Excellent, brilliant. Our final question comes from Jason.
Should the police threaten kids who are absent from school?
Should the police threaten kids who are absent from school? So the Observer reports today that certain schools in England are sending police round to the homes of kids who are absent quite regularly. They've received reports of police forcing their way into homes and telling the children that their parents could be sent to jail if they don't attend school. And critics have said that this drive to increase school attendance is a bit heavy-handed. Lewis, what do you think? You don't like discipline.
No, I don't call it discipline. I'm against school. I'm against the state control of the school. People need to talk about this. The police, but this has been going on forever. My father in New York was a truant officer in the 1950s. So this has been going on forever.
Did you just like working from home?
No, did I like working from home?
No, him, trying to get used to it. Never mind.
Yeah. The point. What was the point? Don't talk to me. What I'm trying to think of what I'm going to say.
Do you think this approach is heavy-handed, or do you think it's appropriate? Because after COVID, people have stopped going to school.
Yeah.
Attendance is terrible. We heard recently that lots of parents, they're not going to work themselves on Friday, so kids are having every Friday off, and that can't be right, can it?
No, I think these children, if they're skiving school, should be given puberty blockers. That's what I think of the punishment. That's
to be given what?
Oh, never mind.
Puberty blockers.
I regret saying it already.
Push back on that.
Yeah?
But don't you think...
That'd be a great punishment there.
No, it wouldn't be a great punishment, Jonathan. It would be a
reward.
Terrible way to put them in... It would ruin their health for the rest of their lives. I think children have lost a lot of time in school over COVID.
Yeah.
Really, now more
They've completely
than ever.
devalued it. But you can learn more with, one YouTube channel talking about... some
Lewis Schaefer.
Yeah, with the Lewis Schaefer masterclass workshop.
Yeah, school is bad.
How to break your brain. Yeah.
Lewis Schaefer, school is bad.
Look,
I would say for a lot of people, school is bad. It's good for everybody because if everybody goes to school, then the parents can work and mothers can work and they can make more money for the state.
Come twice as much.
Well, how do you feel then about the overreach of the state? Do you think it's appropriate to have police showing up in people's homes?
Get out of my house, copper.
Well, if you're gonna make it by law that they have to go, you have to have police to force them to go. You can't say you've got to go, but if you don't go, well, what are you going to do? Nothing. So you got to have the police. If you're going to if you say you have to go, you got to have the police. I say. I don't know what I say because
a
it can't
moment of
be.
silence from Lewis Schaefer. OK, next on Free Speech Nation, author Harry Sol Markham will be here to tell us about how a book he spent months working on was suddenly dropped due to concerns about some of the issues it tackled. See you shortly.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
So there are migrants who come here and they make a big contribution and they pay a lot of tax. And some types of migration from some countries, that's particularly the case.
On that, sorry, Neil,
others,
on that, you say migrants from the Middle East, North Africa and Turkey, aged 25 to 64, are almost twice as likely to be economically inactive as someone born in the UK. So essentially, we've invited people to come here. Presumably, we believe they're going to then work. And then they're twice as likely to be economically inactive. I mean, that's a recipe for economic disaster.
Yeah, so in the last census, we saw that the employment rate of people who are born in the UK is higher than the employment rate of people who've come here from another country. And that tells you that migration policy is not on track at all. And as I say...
Hang on, doesn't that just account for those dependents that are brought with them? So people from the Middle East and North Africa are much more likely to have, for example, a wife who stays at home and a husband who goes out to work. That largely would account for having half as much economic activity.
No, so I should have said, what I meant is even among those who are of working age, excluding the dependents and the children and so on, the employment rate is lower. Now, for some groups
because
from
some
countries...
people stay at home to look after children, perhaps?
Yeah, so there's a lot of people who are economically inactive for that reason. There's a lot more higher rates of unemployment as well among some groups. And if you look, broadly speaking, the trend is that people who come here from rich countries, from either Western Europe or from countries like Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the US and so on, they tend to have very high employment rates and very high earnings as well, and you get clearly a benefit from that. But then if you have a lot of migration from lower skilled people, particularly from poor countries, who have an incentive to come here, even if they're ending up working in the minimum wage, because it's still a lot more than in a very poor country, then you will tend to see people who have either quite low rates of employment for the reasons you're just describing, and also potentially quite low wages as well. So they're very unlikely to be net contributors to
And
each
Neil,
other.
let's not pretend that the immigration debate is all about economics.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
On Mark Dolan tonight, in My Big Opinion, Labour will take us back to the 1970s with their plan for workers' rights. It's the union barons, not Keir Starmer, who will be running Britain. In My Take at 10, Archbishop Justin Welby weighs in on another political row over the 2-child benefit cap. Stick to weddings and christenings, Archbishop, plus the papers, Mark Meets and my top pundits. We're live at 9.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. After months of discussion and supportive emails, writer Harry Sol Markham was about to sign a deal with a publisher for his new book, only for them to suddenly abandon the deal. The book deals with topics such as multiculturalism and a growth in anti-Jewish intolerance, and the publisher decided they did not want to proceed due to the sensitive nature surrounding such issues. And I'm delighted to say Harry Sol Markham joins me now to discuss this. Good evening, Harry.
Good evening to you.
Thank you. Harry, can you tell us a bit about the book?
Yeah, sure. So I decided, after experiencing a horrific anti-Semitic ordeal, in which a large group of violent pro-Palestinian activists outside Downing Street 3 years ago surrounded a group of Jews, and I was a part of the crowd and the crowd that was attacked. I wasn't doing the attacking, right. and I thought to myself, my goodness, how could it be that in this multicultural city, a city whose leaders frequently boast its tolerance, acceptance and openness, that something like this could happen. And so I decided to write a book exploring really where multiculturalism has gone wrong.
Right, and that was 3 years ago. So this is nothing to do with the October the 7th, stuff that's happened in the past.
Well, I suspect, in terms of the decision the publisher made, I suspect their decision was motivated by fears of backlash, because, of course, since October 7th, there have been enormous concerns amongst journalists and publishers that if they write something that may well upset sensibilities of pro-Palestinian activists or various Islamist elements, that they may well be on the receiving end of some nasty abuse. And I suspect that played a huge part in the decision of the publisher.
And how did you find out about the decision from the publisher?
Well, one Friday evening, last week, I was just outside and, you know, just writing as I do, and I received an email informing me that actually we don't really want your book anymore because we're concerned, what do they say, about the sensitive nature of the topics I address. Now, let me be absolutely clear. My book is a centrist, liberal reckoning with multiculturalism. And what I mean by that is that I want to see multicultural societies do better. But to that end, my fellow liberals need to reckon with the fundamental shortcomings of multiculturalism and see where this has gone terribly wrong. Because, of course, whilst I do pay considerable attention to Islamist anti-Semitism, actually what's really concerning is the way in which we are seeing the the erasure of centrist politics, the rise of extremism, and that has implications for Jews and for democracy.
Right, that's an interesting point. I've been on some of the vigils of the October the 7th attacks, and oftentimes, I'm not Jewish myself, and Jewish people will say, thank you for coming. And
well, you're an honorary Jew.
Well, I'm here for me, actually, as well. I'm concerned about all of this.
Sure.
So having worked on the book for so long, how did that feel to suddenly have it taken away from you?
Well, look, I went to bed that Friday night feeling incredibly depressed. And I decided to go onto Twitter the next day and post about it. And I never really used Twitter for anything, really, but I decided to post about my experience. And my gosh, there was a storm. And Andrew Doyle reached out to me and invited me to come on here today. And I've had other people people who've reached out to me, including now my new literary agent. And so this is...
Congratulations.
Many thanks. And this is Andrew's literary agent too. And it's been incredibly helpful, and actually what I really do realise now is that being cancelled is really a blessing, because I would never have had this coverage. Okay, I'm just an odd 24-year-old undergraduate. No one really cares about me aside from my mother, right? So I mean, so the coverage I have received from quite prominent sources has been extraordinary. And really, if I had to say anything to my publisher, I want to say a massive thank you. I wish I could send them a card.
That's a fantastic attitude. OK, well, great. I'm really happy to hear that. But what do you think this says about the wider climate at the moment?
Well, indeed. And so, look, the decision of the publisher was symptomatic of a climate which I think is really fearful to disrupt orthodoxies. Now, I think disrupting orthodoxies is essential for any functioning liberal democracy. We need to protect our dissenting voices. Any student of John Stuart Mill will tell you that. But, of course, I'm not the only victim of this dangerous climate. People who have written on the trans issue, people who have written about colonialism, or people who have expressed very legitimate concerns and grievances about mass immigration or the anti-racist movement, they too have also been silenced. And what I worry about is this, and this is what drove me to write the book, is that if, I'm not going to say I'm normal, but if sensible people don't take these issues on, head on, and confront the unpalatable truths of living in multicultural Western Europe, if sensible people don't do it, then who will? Well, we know who will take these issues on, OK? And those are people that have, it must be said, some anti-democratic tendencies. And I say that what we need for there to be a centrist revival is for centrists to reclaim these issues, to talk about these issues in a reasoned manner, because the alternative, frankly, is good for no one.
Absolutely. So has this caused you to revise any parts of the book or to add to it at all?
So I finished my manuscript on October the 5th. And 2 days later, I had to rewrite my afterword. Now, I'm having to add to my afterword. It seems that these various things that have happened since I finished the manuscript are causing me to add to my manuscript, and I really am grateful to the publisher, because now I will, when it comes to marketing the book, I can market the book as the book which a publisher was too afraid to publish.
Absolutely. Well, that's fantastic. But I mean, that doesn't apply to everybody, does it? You could say you're a lucky case. Are you aware of other Jewish creatives that have faced similar problems? Well,
I am extraordinarily lucky, and I am aware that there have been plenty of others that have written on particularly the issue of Islamist anti-Semitism. It's the case that it's common amongst liberals, or so-called liberals, to basically say that, well, we need to deal with far-right extremism and Islamist extremism. Well, yes, we absolutely do, but one is causing more problems for Jews than the other, right? And so for my fellow writers that have written things on this topic, not only have they not been able to get their work published, they have been horrifically treated by their intellectual counterparts. And really, I'm afraid to say, the culture within academia now has presented major stumbling blocks to any intellectual that wants to talk honestly on this important issue.
Right, OK. Well, finally then, do you have a new publishing date, and where can people find your work?
Well, not yet, but watch this space, because I know that I won't stop until this book is out, because I worked too damn hard for it not to be released. So watch this space, yeah.
Fantastic. Harry Salt,
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you, Harry. OK. Next on Free Speech Nation, Jonathan Cogan and Lewis Schaefer will be back with me to take more questions from this wonderful studio audience. See you shortly.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead, sunny spells on Monday, but it is going to be turning more unsettled as we go through the week. At the moment, we've got a ridge of high pressure extending out towards the west, bringing settled conditions for the rest of this evening and overnight. So looking ahead, we have got low cloud, mist and fog moving its way in from the North Sea. That will progress further inland with a bit of a breeze coming into East Anglia. Further towards the west, that's where we'll see the clearest skies, and Northern Ireland may see some mist and fog developing. Chilly underneath the clearest skies, but elsewhere holding up at around 10 or 11 degrees. So quite a murky start out there for many of us to start Monday morning. Best of the sunshine first thing is going to be across western parts, so even into western Scotland, but holding on to some sea fog and low cloud the further east you go. Like I said, some low cloud, mist and fog across Northern Ireland. That will gradually lift and break, and then bright skies across the west, but low cloud lingering through the morning. But as we go through the rest of the morning, that low cloud should start to lift, break, melt its way back towards coastal areas, maybe taking a bit of time to do so, but elsewhere turning dry, plenty of sunshine on offer. We will still see a few showers breaking out, especially across parts of western Northern Ireland. Some of these could be heavy at times, and potentially even northern parts of Wales. But elsewhere, feeling pleasant in the sunshine, where we do see it up to 20 or 22 degrees. As we go through Tuesday, again, some low cloud coming into eastern areas. Then it's a mixture of sunny spells, but some heavy showers breaking out, especially focused across the west as we go through the afternoon. And then into Wednesday, we've got a low pressure system out towards the east, could bring heavy spells of rain and generally rather unsettled.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Later in the show, I'll be turning agony aunt with the help of my panel, Jonathan Cogan and Lewis Schaefer, to help you deal with your unfiltered dilemmas. These two solving people's problems. What could possibly go wrong?
Lawsuit.
Brilliant. Message us at gbnews.com/your say, and we will help you deal with your issues. Imagine that. Now let's get some more questions from the audience. Our first question is from Jane.
Do you like the new portrait of King Charles III?
Do you like the new portrait of King Charles III? Do you like it, Jane?
I'm undecided.
You're undecided?
Yeah, I think that it looks like... Sorry. To me, it looks like it's been tampered with, you know, from like Just Stop Oil, you know, with all the paint splashed over it, or muck splattered all over it.
It's pre-souped.
So harsh, Joe.
Yeah,
so
it
harsh.
does.
This week saw the unveiling of the first official portrait of King Charles II since his coronation. Unveiled at Buckingham Palace, it shows the King in the uniform of the Welsh Guards and has elicited a mixed reaction. The painting is by Jonathan Yeo, who has previously painted the likes of Tony Blair and Sir David Attenborough. So, Lewis, thoughts?
My thoughts are people have painted an entire page, and now they're working their way backwards. The painting as less as they can. I would complain about it. I'd say, where's the rest? But I don't like the King.
So you're referring to the fact that the head and the hands are quite apparent, but the body is a lot...
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it. It's a lot less...
visible. It could be anything. There is a butterfly on it.
There is.
I don't know if the butterfly
painted. Is that a reference
painted.
to King Charles being a bit of a nature lover?
Or gay. I didn't know. I mean, he might be. Maybe that's his way of coming out.
Fantastic. Jonathan, you're a creative. What do you think?
It's a bit spooky, the picture. It kind of looks like he's a guilty child who's been playing around with a candy floss machine that's sort of gone everywhere.
Do you think that might be your own projection?
It did happen to me once, in a fun fair in France, in Dordogne, and I'm not allowed back to France, but it's okay. It's a rubbish country. So,
You hang it in your house. Do you like it?
I don't. It is. I mean, it's very evil looking. I think it's the red. It's a bold, reddish, hellish vision of the end of days, and I, for one, am here for it. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I don't like it either. Because I know Jonathan doesn't like it. I don't like it either. Red is, I think, is a team world country. That's what it is. It's communist, and I think that's what he's which side he's gone.
I hadn't seen that. I hadn't seen the communist colour, but you're quite right.
Yeah.
Okay. Our next question is from John.
Should Oxford University vet Chancellor candidates?
Should Oxford University vet Chancellor candidates? The University of Oxford has shelved plans to vet candidates vying to become its Chancellor after accusations the institution was trying to stitch up the process in order to make sure another white male politician didn't enter the role. So Oxford officials would have been given the power to disqualify candidates who put themselves forward for the election, which is voted on by Oxford graduates. But the university has walked back from these plans. Jonathan, what do you think?
I just disdain any kind of university administration. Imagine that. Imagine that's what you do. All these clever kids running around and you're just making the rules, deciding what they can and can't do and who can be voted for. And
so you don't think that,
leave
given
me
that
alone.
this role has typically been a white man many, many times, you don't think it's time for somebody else to have a...
Well, historically, I suppose it's typically been a predominantly white country, and males were the most sort of prominent people in academia up until, fairly recent times. And so, yeah, I mean, just get the best person for the job, obviously. I'm a big fan of meritocracy. As I want. Did I say best man for the job?
What do you think?
I'm against it because it's kept me back.
What kind of DEI hire are you?
I don't know what category I fit in. It's just like how to mess up the whole thing. Anyway, the point is that the people who own Oxford University, where their money comes from, should decide who the president of Oxford University is going to be, and where's the money coming from for Oxford University? It's coming from
China.
China. That was China and this country.
So what you're saying is the Chinese should be able to choose.
In a way, they should be, but I don't think they're giving as much money as the British government when they pay people's tuition to go there.
Interesting. Okay. Well, personally, I don't like DEI. I don't think they should do it. If they are going to secretly fiddle it in the background, they shouldn't be telling us about it. What was that?
Just a load of racists.
Just a load of racists. There you go. That's our studio audience. His opinion. Our next question is from Gavin.
Are the barristers' wigs culturally insensitive?
Are barristers' wigs culturally insensitive? The Telegraph is reporting that English courts are poised to abandon compulsory wigs for barristers because they're considered culturally insensitive. This is after some barristers complained that the traditional headpieces discriminate against those with Afro-Caribbean hair. However, the proposals are currently being reviewed and no final decision has been taken. Lewis, thoughts on this one?
Those wigs have been around for I don't know how many years they've been around for, but they look like they don't look like anybody's hair. They're a bit scary looking. Who knows what's inside? I dated a girl who had what do you call those things, and it was a bit creepy. And then you get used to it. Next thing you know, you're looking for girls who have that kind of hair. So it isn't that way. It's that the hair that they put on their heads is. People should be allowed to wear uniforms if they want to have. I've changed my attitude. I've been here for 24 years.
You've been here for 20. Oh, the country.
In the country for 24. No, feels like 24 years. I say my feeling is that they should be allowed to wear whatever they want to wear.
Very liberal. Jonathan, what do you think? Because it's very prestigious, isn't it? I imagine some barristers are proud of their wig.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to one family member who's a barrister, but he didn't want me to say who it was because I don't get in trouble. Anyway, my dad was basically saying that. Anyway, it's my dad. So basically, he was saying that a lot of barristers consider them to be a bit outdated now, those wigs, and there's no real reason to wear it. You still wear your gowns, you still wear that. But from the racially sensitive perspective, I don't fully see why that is. It's the idea that that's sounding ridiculous. If you have sort of like an afro, then it wouldn't fit. Like if you have a, what if I have a big Jufro? What about, you know?
Well, then the same would apply, wouldn't it? I think the point.
I wouldn't think it's culturally insensitive. I would just those wigs don't look cool anyway. They look terrible on. If you've got a shaved head, they look terrible.
Well,
they don't look good. They don't look good on anybody.
Made to shave a beard for a wedding, and I thought that was a very invasive thing to do to interfere with his face.
He had made to shave a beard for a wedding.
Yeah.
For the photos.
Made her shave the beard.
No, I've not heard the guest. Our next question is from Luke.
Good evening, guys. Do people drink Guinness just to look cool?
OK. Is Guinness drinking turning into a personality trait? Gen Z drinkers have been slammed for training themselves to drink Guinness after videos of Kim Kardashian and Olivia Rodrigo throwing back the black stuff caused UK sales to soar by 24%. It's been claimed that some people just want to get on the Guinness drinking action and are putting clips of themselves consuming the drink.
Sorry, did you just say Kim Kardashian's been throwing down the black stuff? How? That's not what this show is about.
I'm talking about.
That is not what this show is about. This is about liberal values.
Well, look at your shirt. You look like the type of person who might drink a drink to be cool. What do you think?
Yeah, Guinness, it does have a bit of a meme quality to it. I think, you know, it's one of the most iconic drinks around. Everyone can recognise it. Not many other beers you just see and know what it was just from looking at it in a glass. Fair point, no?
Well, my dad drinks it.
Yeah.
So I recognise it as a dad drink.
He's a meme lord. Yeah.
He's a meme lord.
Yeah, it's a bit of a dad drink. I like a Guinness. It's, you know, it's kind of easy first thing in the airport on a stag do. I don't think it's, you know, it's just stuff comes in and out of fashion. Yeah, it's Guinness. It's nice.
Are you a Guinness man?
Good for you.
I actually am a Guinness man because it's a bit lighter and it tastes
lighter.
Yeah.
Soup.
Less calories.
It is soup, but I don't think it has as much alcohol as something. But it's like everything is sold based on getting people to think that they look cool doing it or drinking it. So, well, I don't know why they're making a big deal. They used to advertise Guinness as having high iron.
Good for you.
And it doesn't. And it doesn't. You can look it up.
Everybody knows Guinness is horrible.
Oh,
no,
it's good.
It's horrible.
It's delicious.
Got some booze. OK, next on Free Speech Nation, it's Mental Health Awareness Week, and we're going to speak with celebrity chef Jameson Stocks about the importance of looking after that aspect of your health and how it relates to his own experiences. Don't go away.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
This is not the time for Panglossian spin. Last week's election results were a thumping defeat for the Tories and a warning of what is likely to follow at a general election. Although Labour under Keir Starmer is not as popular as New Labour under Blair, the electorate is wary of a Conservative Party that has no vision. All they seem to offer is an arguably competent management of the status quo, which the Labour Party seeks to mimic. Yet the status quo is not good enough. Public services are not of a satisfactory standard at the moment. HMRC cannot be bothered to answer the telephone and sets response targets that it doesn't meet. Minor motoring infringements lead to driving bans. Unnecessary checks on safe food from the EU will push up prices and stop some goods coming in. The government seems set on managing for the concerns of the manager, not for the voters. This needs to change. The little inconveniences of life must be removed, and officialdom must work for the citizen, not the other way round. Legal migration needs to be reduced further as it harms the standard of living of the poorest the most. It can be brought down by ministerial action and does not need primary legislation. Illegal migration must be dealt with more promptly, and flights to Rwanda need to become a reality. The war on the motorist must stop. 20 mph speed limits removed, as even the Welsh government has realised they are useless and annoying. And the power of councils to fine for trivial infringements must go. These little routes just make people's lives a little bit more difficult. Green policies that make us cold and poor need to be suspended. Surcharges on electricity ought to fall on the state, not on the consumer or business, making us less competitive. And the ambition for net zero should be delayed until there's affordable technology or other countries begin to catch up. Trust the people is a better slogan than coalition of chaos.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Today marks the end of Mental Health Awareness Week, an undertaking which aims to tackle stigma and help people understand and prioritise theirs and others' mental health. Someone who knows plenty about this is celebrity chef Jameson Stocks, whose own mental health suffered after he was the victim of a witch hunt in the media, which was only resolved with the help of the Press Complaints Commission and the Leveson Inquiry. I'm delighted to say that Jameson Stocks joins me now. So, Jameson, you've had a really challenging time regarding your own mental health, including what sounds like a really unpleasant ordeal involving the media. So what happened?
Oh, well, going back to the beginning, I started winning quite a lot of awards when I was younger, and then I upset probably the wrong person within the media, and they basically came after me with headlines. I was on the front page of a national newspaper for 2-3 days in a row, stating all sorts of nonsense, basically, and it took 5-6 years for it to be taken offline.
Right, and you were able to do that with the help of the Press Complaints Commission?
Yeah, the Press Complaints Commission are basically there to monitorise, dodgy journalism, basically, but unfortunately that closed down in 2014, and the IPSO now took over, and anything older than 10 years is unfortunately classed out of their jurisdiction, so I'm still, even to this day, fighting it.
Still ongoing?
Even from 2008.
And so despite all the success in winning these awards, there was a period of time where you just weren't able to work because of this?
I had to resign from my job because I was on the front page of the papers, I was getting harassed, I was currently at that time getting a house built as well. So I ploughed all my money into a house.
Which is stressful at the best of times.
And I ended up having to resign from my job, so I couldn't keep up and pay for the house, so I lost a lot of money, and yeah, it was pretty tough. I couldn't even work in this country for probably 6 years.
And you were a single parent at the time as well, is that right?
This is slightly before I had my 2 children,
right.
So it wasn't... Okay. I was in preparation for them to come. In fact, I think my oldest one was on the way.
Wow.
So,
and you've talked about support being really important when you're going through things like this. What was your support like at the time?
I didn't really have any support. I mean, I was 22, 23 at the time. I had newspapers camped outside my house.
Oh, that's horrendous.
I had people hassling my neighbours. I had people intruding in my private life. I had my phones hacked. Yeah, it was pretty brutal.
And do you think we're at a point now where talking about mental health is a bit more acceptable, a bit easier than it was at the time?
1,000,000%. I think that there's far more acceptance now towards people having struggles, excuse me, for people who are maybe there's more signs to people actually struggling with mental health than there was back then. See, I just shut myself away. I actually had a breakdown for 6 or 7 years.
Do you mean signs as in we're all a bit more aware, people might
so.
notice if someone's withdrawn?
I don't think it has so much stigma attached to it anymore. I think a lot of people back, when I was in my early 20s would be like, just pull yourself together, what's wrong with you, get yourself out of bed, motivate yourself, do this, do that.
Definitely.
But now, because there's so much awareness around it, charities and people championing it, I think more of as a wide community, it's more acceptable.
Right, and Mental Health Awareness Week presumably is a part of that.
Yes, as is, there is a lot of other, awareness weeks and stuff.
Well, definitely, I'm fascinated by mental health, and I spend a lot of time watching stuff on YouTube because it just genuinely takes my attention. I think it's an interesting area.
Yeah.
So one thing you've talked about before is the impact of relationships on mental health. Do you specifically mean romantic relationships?
I've had problems with romantic relationships. In fact, I've had quite a lot of stress regarding that. I've had 2 people have been convicted because of the way they've been treating me.
Right.
Coercive behaviour, etc. I've just come out of an abusive relationship as well, which wasn't particularly good.
So having said that support's important, that one person you might expect to support you wasn't around to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And as a single parent, you don't want to obviously to impact your children so much.
Right. And that's one of the reasons why mental health is so important, isn't it? Because it's not just the person suffering, but the community around them, if you've got kids, family members.
Well, my children are at an age now where they can Google stuff and they can see stuff which is incorrect written about me. And it's like, I've had the conversation with them and I've said to them, listen, Daddy's still going through the court jurisdiction, the courts and stuff, even to this day.
Right.
Even though it happened 3, 4,
What sort of age, if you don't mind, are they?
My oldest is 13 and my youngest is 11.
Right, so that's at an age where presumably they're thinking about their own mental health because it's talked about in schools now.
Yeah.
Does it make up a part of their education? Are they quite aware of these topics?
I think because of social media and because of pressures within school itself, you're wearing the latest trainers, you're wearing this, it puts a lot of pressure on children anyway. I'd say to them that I try to explain to them that just be yourself. And, if they want to know something, I'll tell them the truth. And even if it's hard to tell them the truth, I'll still tell them rather than read about it and
absolutely,
and for them to take.
I think looking after kids in this day and age with social media is got to be one of the biggest challenges. That's something we talk about a lot now, isn't it? Whether or not kids should be on social media.
I don't let my children on social media at all.
Right.
That's not to say they're not, but I try not to encourage it.
Very wise to me.
Yeah.
OK, so at the moment, where do people find you? Where do they look you up if they're interested in your work?
Well, they message me on. I actually get quite a lot of people reaching out on Instagram, whether it's single parents or people who are struggling with mental health themselves, whether it's, they've been through something similar to me. But like I said, in a previous question, that a lot of people's mental health comes down to being in a relationship where you've either been abused or even if it's ever so slightly, demeaning towards you, it still brings your mood down. It still makes you feel inadequate, and that's the telltale sign for me because I've been through it before. My last relationship, I picked it up quite quickly, and I got out.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing that.
No worries.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jameson Stocks, thank you. Plenty more to come on Free Speech Nation tonight, including the shocking case of an Iranian rapper sentenced to death by the repressive regime, news of a talk series aimed at young people which challenges established ideas, and more questions from our fantastic, beautiful studio audience. See you shortly.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead, sunny spells on Monday, but it is going to be turning more unsettled as we go through the week. At the moment, we've got a ridge of high pressure extending out towards the west, bringing settled conditions for the rest of this evening and overnight. So looking ahead, we have got low cloud, mist and fog moving its way in from the North Sea. That will progress further inland with a bit of a breeze coming into East Anglia. Further towards the west, that's where we'll see the clearest skies, and Northern Ireland may see some mist and fog developing. Chilly underneath the clearest skies, but elsewhere holding up at around 10 or 11 degrees. So quite a murky start out there for many of us to start Monday morning. Best of the sunshine first thing is going to be across western parts, so even into western Scotland, but holding on to some sea fog and low cloud the further east you go. Like I said, some low cloud, mist and fog across Northern Ireland that will gradually lift and break, and then bright skies across the west, but low cloud lingering through the morning. But as we go through the rest of the morning, that low cloud should start to lift, break, melt its way back towards coastal areas, maybe taking a bit of time to do so, but elsewhere turning dry, plenty of sunshine on offer. We will still see a few showers breaking out, especially across parts of western Northern Ireland. Some of these could be heavy at times, and potentially even northern parts of Wales, but elsewhere feeling pleasant in the sunshine, where we do see it up to 20 or 22 degrees. As we go through Tuesday, again, some low cloud coming into eastern areas. Then it's a mixture of sunny spells, but some heavy showers breaking out, especially focused across the west as we go through the afternoon. And then into Wednesday, we've got a low pressure system out towards the east, could bring heavy spells of rain and generally rather unsettled.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, in My Big Opinion, Labour will take us back to the 1970s with their plan for workers' rights. It's the union barons, not Keir Starmer, who will be running Britain. In My Take at 10, Archbishop Justin Welby weighs in on another political row over the two-child benefit cap. Stick to weddings and christenings, Archbishop, plus the papers, Mark Meets and my top pundits. We're live at 9.
The next Great British Giveaway winner could be you, with a massive £20,000 in tax-free cash to be won. Imagine how you'd react getting that winning call from us.
Oh my God, are you joking? Not a wine, I never won a penny in my life.
I don't know what to say.
Do you know what? I've never won anything like this in my life. Oh my God. Oh God. Oh, it shocks me. This is amazing.
For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text PRIZE to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nana Akua, weekends from 3 p.m.
Next up, though, Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, did not see Charles during the trip to London this week. It was reported, according to the Times, there are different versions of the story, depending on who asked who, whether they should see who. It's all a bit complicated. The King agreed, apparently, to a request from the Duke of Sussex to stay in a royal residence for the last week of his trip to London, mindful that his youngest son no longer has an official UK residence. That's what's reported. And in the event, however, Harry is thought to have chosen to stay in a hotel during his 3-day visit. Meanwhile, an official scheme to deliver portraits of the King has been extended, and it now includes hospital, Coast Guard centres, job centres, universities, Church of England, churches and other public institutions. Well, let's welcome back to my clashers Lord Daniel Moylan, Conservative member of the House of Lords, and also Norman Baker, former Liberal Democrat minister. Right, Daniel, what do you think then? Have you been following this royal story with Prince Harry coming to the UK and not seeing his father?
No. To be perfectly honest, I don't find the whole Prince Harry thing terribly interesting. And let's put this in an historical perspective. This is mild stuff. I mean, George III in the 18th century famously got on extremely badly with all his sons, who were absolutely brutal to him and completely horrible during his long reign. And Edward III not only deposed his father, he was almost certainly party to the plot to murder him later. So, just not turning up while the King's at a garden party and so on. This is all very mild stuff. It's not very interesting in the historical perspective. Fathers and sons argue. That includes kings. He hasn't actually set about to achieve any of his historical precedents. He's just sort of going to live in California, which is relatively mild compared to what has happened in the past.
There's plenty more still to come on Free Speech Nation this week, including yet another example of the shocking repression of free speech in Iran, and more questions from this fantastic audience for myself and my panel. But let's get a news update first from Sam Francis.
Very good evening to you. It's just after 8 o'clock. The top stories from the newsroom this evening. The helicopter carrying the Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi and his foreign minister has crashed as it was flying across the mountains in northwest Iran this afternoon. Search and rescue teams are now facing the significant challenge of locating the president's crashed chopper in heavy rain, in fog and in darkness. Well, in the last few moments, in fact, conflicting reports have been emerging, with some sources suggesting that helicopter has been found. Reuters news agency are quoting state media saying that it has been discovered by search and rescue teams, though no detail on where it was found or if any survivors have been located. However, Iran's Red Crescent are denying those reports from state media. We will keep across that for you, bring you the latest updates as we get them. But as we know for now from official sources, the lives of the Iranian president and the foreign minister are at risk after a crash this afternoon. Meanwhile, in the UK, families who've lost loved ones gathered at a vigil in Parliament Square in London ahead of the release of a final report into the infected blood scandal. Tomorrow, an inquiry is due to outline major failings which led to an estimated 3,000 deaths from contaminated blood in the 70s and 90s. The Chancellor has vowed to compensate victims with a £10 billion package. One of the victims, Joan Edgington, has discussed the effect it's had on her.
All have different and various physical things, but it's the mental, the anguish of what we're going through, and that in itself is a support if you have the friends' support. But also, as mentioned, that the Red Cross are there at the hearings, and we can now go for counselling. And a lot of people I know go for counselling of just it's the uncertainty of your future. And what it's done to you, and the stability of your mind in a way.
Thousands of residents in Devon who've been forced to boil their tap water before drinking it have been told that Safe Water will be running again as soon as possible. The firm says that around 2,500 properties still need to boil their tap water. South West Water issued the update on supplies in Brixham following a parasite outbreak there. Experts think the waterborne disease Cryptosporidium entered the water storage tanks via a damaged air pipe in the area, causing sickness and diarrhoea. In other news, the Prime Minister is set to warn the public about the risks of artificial intelligence. Rishi Sunak will tell a major tech summit in South Korea that managing the risks of AI is one of the most profound responsibilities, he says, faced by world leaders. The Prime Minister will be a virtual co-host dialling in from London alongside the South Korean president on Tuesday. Officials in Slovakia are investigating whether an attacker who shot the country's Prime Minister acted alone. 59-year-old Robert Fico's condition is no longer life-threatening, but is still very serious after he was hit multiple times on Wednesday. A man's now been charged with attempting to murder him, with officials suggesting the attack was politically motivated. And in sport, Manchester City's players and fans are celebrating once again after sealing a record fourth consecutive Premier League title tonight. They've now lifted the trophy in the last 6 of the past 7 years. This time, though, winning 3-1 against West Ham to make sure they couldn't be caught at the top of the table. Arsenal, challengers for the trophy, had to settle for the runner-up spot despite their 2-1 victory tonight over Everton. For the latest stories, you can sign up to GB News Alerts. Just scan the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Discussion with me, Cressida Wetton, standing in for the great Andrew Doyle. Time for more questions from this fantastic audience. Our first question from this section is from Gavan again. Thank you for asking so many questions, Gavan.
That's OK, I don't mind. Right, did Tyson Fury lose because of the Ukraine war?
Did Tyson Fury lose because of the Ukraine war? It was a big heavyweight world title fight last night in Saudi Arabia between the unbeaten pair, Tyson Fury in Britain and Alexandra Usyk, I think, from Ukraine. Usyk won a thrilling fight in a split decision, but Fury claimed afterwards the judges were influenced by the fact Usyk's country had been invaded by Russia. Jonathan, what do you think?
Well, I think it's amazing that producer Mark managed to get in a sports story in the one time Andrew was away, so very impressive.
We don't typically cover sports, but this is a political sports story, or is it? What do you think?
Or is it? I really don't know, actually. I really don't know. Like, it was a great fight. I think it went 12 rounds. You know, absolute massive respect to both of them. I don't know. I think probably the last few rounds, Usyk probably took it, but I mean, what do I know?
Were you watching it?
Well, I watched the highlights on YouTube, so I think that's how I know everything. That's
brilliant.
That's a level of knowledge I need. But no, I don't know. I don't know.
Lewis, do you think? I mean, I don't know a lot about boxing culture, but I know that they're not shrinking violets, are they? They're very confident gentlemen. Do you think it might be a sort of bravado thing?
I don't think people need a war to win a fight. Or to lose, to lose a war, to lose a fight. Whatever it is, they don't need to. I mean, I think this could have all been staged, too. It could have been, what's his name, Fury, wanted a rematch. That's where the money is, because he's been winning too many fights. And
interesting.
I think he got like 80 mil for that last fight or something.
Yeah, and so he would get more for the rematch. The rematch is going to be how much money he gives the guy. And the guy says, I don't want a rematch, which means he's going to get paid even more money, which means the guy's going to...
I read he wanted a rest, and I've seen the size of both of them, and I thought, fair enough, yeah. I'd like a rest too.
Also, Tyson Fury, biggest dude, scariest I could do, is my age, the same age.
Is he?
Yeah, I do find that kind of...
16 and a half, amazing. Yeah. Our next question is from Luke.
Hello again, guys. Do you guys agree with the result of the poll that puts Jeremy Clarkson as the sexiest man in the UK?
What do you think, Luke? Do you think he's sexy?
Not particularly. I'd personally put Lewis Schaefer on top of my poll.
Oh, don't. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Is Jeremy Clarkson Britain's sexiest man? Jeremy Clarkson has been named the UK's sexiest man for the second year in a row, apparently, beating the likes of Tom Holland, Prince William and Idris Elba to the title. The annual poll was conducted by Illicit Encounters, which is apparently the best online dating site for married people, so that's nice. What do you, I mean, obviously, you're going to say you're the more attractive of the pair of you, Lewis, but what do you think? Do you think Jeremy Clarkson's sexy?
Well, it depends if you're married or not, I think. And that's what this is for. This is basically saying people who are cheaters, like Jeremy Clarkson, he reeks of bad behaviour. Probably he's never done a bad thing in his entire life, but he strikes people as a bad...
Do you think women want a bad boy? Jonathan,
no,
what do you think?
women who are bad want a bad boy.
Women who are bad, OK. Jonathan, do you think there's something appealing about Mr Clarkson?
I would.
Would you? Would you? OK. I have to...
wrestle me like you wrestled those lambs in Series 2 of Clarkson's Farm.
Clarkson's Farm. I still haven't watched that.
No, neither have I. Just made that up.
From my understanding, it's a lot about planning.
Did you make that up?
Yeah.
Would you be on your best behaviour? This is the serious program.
Oh my goodness! Imagine being told how to behave by Lewis Schaefer. Our next question is from Ryan.
Hi again.
Hello.
Should civil servants wear rainbow lanyards?
What do you think, Ryan? Should they?
Years ago, I was a big supporter, actually, but now I think it's wider symbolism of rampant activism in the civil service, so I don't think they should now.
Interesting. Should civil servants wear rainbow lanyards? Esther McVey, the Minister for Common Sense, has said that she'll crack down on diversity initiatives in the civil service, including banning the wearing of rainbow lanyards. McVey says civil servants should be leaving their political views at the building entrance and that we've too often seen them distracted by fashionable hobby horses, especially when it comes to issues like equality and diversity. Lewis, what do you think about rainbow lanyards?
I think you could basically give the same message without rainbow lanyards. It's basically saying you've invented Team World, and if you're against it, you're screwed.
So that's what a rainbow lanyard says to you. It doesn't say diversity and inclusion. It says a very specific political message.
It says if you're a white, straight man, you got no chance, basically, in the world.
Well, you could be an ally, couldn't you?
You could be, and they're telling you better be an ally, otherwise you're not going to get anything. You know, it's like my bus driver. I hate to say I have a bus, but my bus driver, he came to work today, was wearing one of those white T-shirts. What do they call those things with the arms? You know, you want
a T-shirt.
You want somebody who's in a position, government position, to be at least dressed, properly dressed.
So you think if they're wearing a rainbow lanyard, it's not smart enough?
I think everyone needs to be told there's one team, and if you don't agree with the team, just keep it to yourself.
Like you do. Jonathan, what do you think about this? Do you think Esther McVeigh's right to come in and try and keep all of this diversity stuff?
I'm not a big fan of banning things as such, but I think I share Ryan's view on this. Ryan?
Yeah. Well, that you used to be into it and now you've changed your mind.
Yeah, I think so, because I think it's kind of changed meaning in some ways, I think. But also people should be allowed to wear what they want, I guess, although it is a professional thing. I don't know. I don't care. No, I don't know.
You don't care. Of course you care. Our final question is from Jason.
Hello again. Would you notice if opera houses shut down?
Would you notice if opera houses shut down? Nearly half the British public would not notice if all the country's opera houses were torn down, while 40% of people have never met an opera fan, a report has warned. So the wake-up calls for the art come from a survey conducted on behalf of the Laidlaw Opera Trust. What do you think, Jonathan? Would you be sad if all the opera disappeared?
I think Andrew Doyle would be, so I feel like on his show I have to agree. Would I be sad? I've been to the opera once. I saw La Bohème. And it was fine. It was, you know,
Is that a sort of romantic tragedy?
I think so, yeah. They did actually have... It wasn't in English, if I recall, but they did have subtitles. No, it wasn't English. No, it was. What do I think? I think it'd be a shame to lose them. I think I like the idea of it more than reality, which is probably true with all my beliefs, but...
Can you believe the tickets are up to £300?
No, that's quite extortionate.
That is a lot, isn't it? Apparently they start at 30, though. Lewis, are you an opera fan? I don't know if you've...
No, I'm not even a soap opera fan.
You're not even a soap fan?
Of course people aren't. Let's say half... Oh, sorry.
I said you're not even a soap fan. Sorry.
A soap fan. Is that half the people... So let's say half the people don't care about opera. That's still half the people who do care about opera. So... Whose money are we spending? They didn't ask the question. We don't know what the question is. This is one of those horrible surveys. Until you find out how much money... People are being asked this, but where's the money coming from? Is it coming out of my money? If it's £300, let the rich people pay for it if it's going to cost £300. Why should I have to pay for opera? It's not even English opera. It's it's just opera. Why should we pay to have Italian opera? We can go to Italy to them. You could probably...
Oh, yeah, that'll keep the cost down, going on holiday to go and see an opera.
Well, it would basically turn people off to opera. We can move on.
Okay. Very cultured answers. Okay. So coming up next on Free Speech Nation, a change of tone indeed. Nick Williams from Index on Censorship will join me to discuss the death sentence handed down by the Iranian regime to a hugely popular rapper, Tumaj Salehi. Don't go anywhere.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Well, Welsh farmer Gareth Wyn-Jones is a first-language Welsh speaker and joins us now. Gareth, I mean, a lot of people will be thinking, hang on, this guy is a Welsh teacher. He speaks English. He knew what was on the parking ticket. He's just trying to make a point. He's being a prat, isn't he?
No, hey, come on, mate. I'm a first language Welsh. It's important that we watch after our language and, that everything's bilingual. For us in Wales, you wouldn't go to France and expect your ticket to be in English, would you? English is the most spoken language, but let's watch after these small languages. It's part of our cultural So, you know what, I take my hat off to the guy, fair play to him for go out and to fight this. But what it's done is put it onto the mainstream media, and you're talking about it, even that you're calling them that. You know, at least we're having a discussion about it, and it's putting the Welsh language in the forefront. And,
So,
you know,
Gareth,
Sarah
this is
Cymraeg speaking Welsh is important.
Yeah, so Gareth, this is a matter of principle. Is there a sense that the Welsh language is being eradicated in Wales? Is this something that the Welsh people need to rise up against?
Well, Welsh government are trying to, you know, bring a lot more Welsh speaking into our daily life and teach people how to speak Welsh. Well, everything should be bilingual then. And I think, you know, it should start with government. So government should be putting pressure on these companies to make sure everything is bilingual. So I get behind this guy, fair play to him. It's a good stance, and it puts it in the public eye. Let's have everything in both languages, especially Welsh, because that's my first language. And I'm
you know
not
what?
a
If I was Welsh, I think I would agree with you. I think I would agree with you, Gareth.
It depends if you come from Wrexham.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frothy in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice.
Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Over here in the UK, being critical of those in power is almost part of the job description for rappers and other young musicians. But in Iran, it's apparently a crime worthy of the death penalty. Tumaj Salehi, a hugely successful rapper with more than 2 million followers on Instagram, has been a vocal campaigner for women's rights in Iran following the death in police custody of Mahsa Amini in September. Having been tortured during over a year in prison, he was arrested again in December last year and has now been sentenced to death. More than 100 people involved in music, culture and human rights activism have signed a statement drawn up by Index on Censorship calling for his release. And Nick Williams from Index on Censorship joins me now. Thank you for joining me, Nick.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Can you tell us a bit about Tumaj Salehi's work and the issues that it addresses?
Yeah, so Tumaj has been an incredibly influential and popular musician, and he's always been very explicit, calling for human rights, democracy, calling out corruption, difficulties in people being able to afford to make a living, and sort of speaking in solidarity for others, such as the women who courageously took to the street after Mahsa Amini's death. And he's always been very explicit. And Iranian culture, a lot of Iranian culture has had to navigate censorship through subtle ways. We think of like Jafar Panahi's films, but Tumaj has been very explicit, very vocal, and very passionate and very impassioned. And he's using social media, his music, to try to do what he can. And this time it was being an ally and standing in solidarity with the women who have taken to the streets. And this recent arrest is not the first time. He's been attacked previously. So in 2021, after his song Rat Hole was published, he was arrested and detained for over a week, and then was released on bail. And just to give a bit of character of Tumaj, as soon as he was released on bail, he went out, he returned to the prison where he had been a prisoner and recorded a music video outside the prison to record a song in commemoration of the protesters who had either been killed or injured during the Aban protests. So he's always been very vocal in support of human rights.
That's extraordinary, isn't it? We all hear so much about social justice in this part of the world, but that's real bravery. So can you tell us how, is this typical of a sort of crackdown in Iran on other protesters? You're saying it is. You're saying this is sort of, this would happen to anybody doing what he's doing, but he's just unusually brave.
Well, I think it's like, I mean, we've all seen the footage following the protests after Mahsa Amini's death. You know, people from all walks of life, either artists or people in sort of more middle of the road jobs, you know, may not have done any sort of creative outputs. People have taken a courageous step to go to protests. And we've seen the clampdown continue ever since then. So I think there's been nearly 20,000 people have been arrested in relation to protests. And this is still happening now. So the protests took place a few years ago, but the state are still looking for people who have been involved. So even if you think you may have got away with it, there's still the pressure to respond now.
Right.
And we've seen there's been other protests, other rappers like Saman Sayedi, known as Yassin, was sentenced to death, but luckily his sentence was reduced to 5 years in prison. I mean, I say luckily, he's still in prison, but he's not currently receiving a death sentence. I mean, Tamaj, I think there is a case about how prominent he is as making a sort of an example of him, that if they can get to him, they can get to anyone. And that's a really risky thing that we see, because people, sort of everyday people, may also step back because they've seen what's happening to Tamaj.
And how is he viewed generally by the Iranian public? I mean, is he seen as a hero? Do Conservatives not like him? What do people think of him?
Well, I think, I mean, I will say our ability to speak to people in Iran is incredibly limited. And we don't, because of the security risks it may face to people there. So in terms of how we can directly speak to people who listen to his music, it is limited. But when news broke about the death sentence, we saw a great outflow of support for Tamaj, including from social media users in Iran as well. So I think he is incredibly important for being that voice and that sort of release valve for people's frustrations and sort of desire to see Iran be a better, more respectable, more safe place for people to be able to express themselves. But so you do see a lot of support. I think a lot of from young people as well, who, this may be the first protest they've seen, or the first sort of way that they can themselves call and join a call for greater human rights and democracy.
Sure, OK. And so with the case of Saman Yassin, who was also given the death sentence, but that was then taken back, does that give you hope for this case?
It's a hard one because obviously each case is sort of unique, and Tamaj's case is obviously incredibly difficult because the Supreme Court had already intervened in his case, and that's the reason why he was released on bail after being sentenced to over 6 years in prison. The Supreme Court got involved and referred the case down to the original court and then released him on bail. But then he was only released for over I think it was about 2 weeks before he was arrested again because of the video he made, which you referred to, where he documented the mistreatment that he had during his first prison sentence. So I think obviously this case is very different because of that dynamic. And there are concerns, I think Tamaj's lawyer has spoken about the lower court who had given him this death sentence, which was announced in April, going against what the Supreme Court had said. We know that there has been an appeal lodged, so we can only hope that the judicial process can respect that and he can be released, because he should not be in prison and he should certainly not be facing the death sentence.
Right, OK. And sitting here watching this here in the West, it's obviously very frustrating. Is there anything that people here can do to support him?
I would say, because of, as you say, Iran's a very hard country to advocate for and support. I would say just keep his music alive, keep listening to it. There's a lot of his music is available online with English subtitles. Just to make sure that this story doesn't just sort of get missed. Obviously, there is a lot going on around the world. But I think to ensure that cases like this don't just become the sort of white noise that we come to expect from countries like Iran or just globally, and just to ensure that, Iran needs to know that the rest of the world are paying attention wanting to follow what they're doing. And I think, so if anything we can do, I mean, that's why we were so proud to have all of the people signed our statement, because it kept the story alive, and news outlets like this, also anyone just sort of listening to it, talking about him, I think is a really powerful thing that can be done.
And you've had some support from pretty big names, haven't you?
Yes, I mean, we were really delighted. And, people not connected to rap, not connected to Iran, maybe not necessarily people who are sort of outspoken on human rights issues. But I think that it sort of shows what Tamaj's case really cuts through, is that you may not be a fan of rap, it may not be your music style, but someone who is able to speak eloquently about human rights, the position of young people, the position of women, the position of a country that he loves. This is from wanting Iran to be better for people who live there.
Sure.
And people being able to speak out and, say what they would like and meet and talk to the other one. So I think that cuts through, and people want to see that protected wherever that is, whether that's Iran, the UK, globally, it's a universal
Absolutely. And can you tell us a bit about the Index on Censorship and where people can find out more about it?
Yes, Index on Censorship. Our website's indexoncensorship.org. We're on all the usual places on social media. So yeah, we campaign for freedom of expression globally. We've worked on issues around sort of Chinese censorship in the UK. We're currently working on strategic lawsuits against public participation in the UK to ensure that anyone who speaks out is not going to be the victim of a abusive lawsuit for speaking out. But we are global we're based in the UK. So yes, so we have a newsletter, we have a magazine that we publish. We've been publishing for over 50 years. So we've really been able to promote sort of like Havel, Samuel Beckett, you know, these epochal writers and activists from the fall of the Berlin Wall up to now, where we are now, really.
Fantastic. OK, Nick Williams, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Jonathan, you're often getting us in trouble here, or almost getting us in trouble for your outspoken views. What do you make of this case?
I think the guy's an absolute hero, really. Speaking up against tyranny in its most sort of atrocious form through his art, through his music. That is
to have been arrested already, to have already suffered at the hands of the regime, and to just go straight back.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's an absolutely terrible regime they've got there, and that is... People over here, like you say, they complain and suggest that that's what we're going through, but no, that's what it actually is. Yeah, here it's just like...
Absolutely. I'm sorry, Lewis, I might have a new hero. What do you make of all this?
Not me.
Not you.
I think, I mean, obviously, I don't support what's going on in Iran, but it's, I mean, is it our business, really? I mean, should they come and say what we should be doing here in England or in America? I wouldn't want them to say that. You have to remember where this government came from and where the regime came from. They came after the Shah of Iran was kicked out, and a lot of people were quite happy about that. And so this is what happens, I think. I don't know, I make it seem like I support...
It is sounding a bit like that, Lewis. Very balanced. OK. Next on Free Speech Nation, we speak to the man behind the new talk series for young people, which features dissenting voices challenging established ideas. See you shortly.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead, sunny spells on Monday, but it is going to be turning more unsettled as we go through the week. At the moment, we've got a ridge of high pressure extending out towards the west, bringing settled conditions for the rest of this evening and overnight. So looking ahead, we have got low cloud, mist and fog moving its way in from the North Sea. That will progress further inland with a bit of a breeze coming into East Anglia. Further towards the west, that's where we'll see the clearest skies, and Northern Ireland may see some mist and fog developing. Chilly underneath the clearest skies, but elsewhere holding up at around 10 or 11 degrees. So quite a murky start out there for many of us to start Monday morning. Best of the sunshine first thing is going to be across western parts, so even into western Scotland, but holding on to some sea fog and low cloud the further east you go. Like I said, some low cloud, mist and fog across Northern Ireland. That will gradually lift and break, and then bright skies across the west, but low cloud lingering through the morning. But as we go through the rest of the morning, that low cloud should start to lift, break, melt its way back towards coastal areas, maybe taking a bit of time to do so, but elsewhere turning dry, plenty of sunshine on offer. We will still see a few showers breaking out, especially across parts of western Northern Ireland. Some of these could be heavy at times, and potentially even northern parts of Wales, but elsewhere feeling pleasant in the sunshine, where we do see it up to 20 or 22 degrees. As we go through Tuesday, again, some low cloud coming into eastern areas. Then it's a mixture of sunny spells, but some heavy showers breaking out, especially focused across the west as we go through the afternoon. And then into Wednesday, we've got a low pressure system out towards the east, could bring heavy spells of rain and generally rather unsettled.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation with me, Cressida Wetton, standing in for Andrew Doyle. Modern Dissent is a new talk series aimed at younger people which challenges established ideas. The next event is with Professor Nigel Biggar, and whose latest book, Colonialism, Moral Reckoning, discusses modern guilt-ridden narratives surrounding Britain's imperialist past. Their first talk was with Professor Eric Kaufmann, who's been a guest on this show before, and I was there, actually, and I enjoyed it very much. So Laurie Wastel and Alex Ruggiero are the co-organisers of Modern Dissent, and they're here with me now to tell us more about it. Laurie and Alex, thank you for joining me. So, Laurie, what is Modern Dissent? What's it all about?
Oh, well, so as we've heard, that it's a talk series. It's aimed generally at younger people, but not exclusively. It's based in London, and yeah, it's about getting sort of dissenting public intellectuals and academics to give lectures to people who, you know, a lot of the time when they say they go to campus somewhere, perhaps in Bristol was an example with our previous speaker Eric Kaufmann. He went to campus. And he was essentially shouted down massively. It was a huge furore around him coming, and it was very difficult even to get a word out. Well, we don't really like that kind of attitude at Modern Dissent, so we're hosting it not actually on a university campus somewhere else in London, but the idea is for people to be able to speak to audiences who are actually more willing to hear what they have to say and to put forward their ideas, have them debated afterwards, to talk about them. And yeah, just to get sort of dissenting perspectives on various culture war and contemporary political issues, and to hear from these interesting intellectuals.
Great. And Alex, you're aiming at younger people. Is that because the universities are sort of not letting this stuff happen, or why did you go for younger people?
Yes, perhaps. I mean, as you said in your little introduction, we're aiming to challenge established ideas. That's our motto. That's our tagline. And as a sort of anti-establishment, we're more based on theory than praxis, let's say. We want to inspire people and provide a sort of intellectual anchor and inspiration for people to challenge these ideas of the establishment. We try to take a fairly neutral stance, but we certainly recognise that there's a lot of sentiment against sort of mainstream centrist established ideas, as you will, and yeah, we want to provide that, as I said, that inspiration, that foundation for younger people to take forwards into their careers, their lives, whether it's politics or just academic careers, perhaps, where we know the culture is less than amenable to free speech. And
so you're breeding dangerous free thinkers at these events.
Exactly.
Fantastic. So I went to the first one and it felt like it was sold out to me, or near enough. So how's the reception been generally?
Yeah, it's been great. Yeah, as you said, it was sold out. In fact, we had to sell an additional 5 and then another additional 5 tickets on the day because demand was so high. So we were very pleased with that. And yeah, it's a very engaged audience. We had an excellent talk from Eric the first time, and I expect we will probably sell out the next one, especially, this might help a little. But yeah, had a very engaged audience, lots of good questions to Professor Eric Kaufmann.
What about negative stuff? Have you had any difficulties with this?
No, marginal. I mean, we have a good venue. That slight concerns about possible disruption. The sort that's happened, as Laurie mentioned, on university campuses, but also other places.
So have you had to keep this kind of under wraps?
It did materialise, and they've actually, all their doubts and fears have been assuaged. So, security fees and things like that have actually well, we're hoping it just doesn't change, but they've disappeared after the first talk, and yeah.
So you're saying prior to getting this going,
Yes,
there were some concerns?
There were some concerns. It wasn't anything extreme. We don't want to say they were actually very reasonable. The venue and other people involved, and they didn't try to cancel us or anything. But yes, I mean, I think we accept that even if you do get free-minded, yes, the sorts of hosts, the venue organisers who are by nature supportive of free speech, it's only fair that they have some concerns about possible disruption. But no, they've been very reasonable overall, and yeah, we're glad to say we haven't had any particular.
Well, this is an issue close to my heart because as a comic, some of the comedy clubs I work for have had problems. Comedy Unleashed, Andrew's Comedy Club, has been banned from. It just takes a few activists to get involved. So if you've got somebody who's going to be speaking who they're not very keen on, it can cause massive problems. I guess that's what you're worrying about.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it turned out fine in the end, but I think Alex is maybe underselling it a little in that there was a great. I mean, so Eric Kaufman he's a very respectable academic, but he has had sort of protesters against him in his career. That's partly why he's moved universities. And same thing with Nigel Biggar. He had a great amount of protesters against originally his Ethics in Empire sort of initiative where he was going to just be really looking at, is the British Empire entirely a bad thing or maybe not, and for simply sort of having an academic seminar about this, he received a huge amount of criticism, protests and all this kind of thing, and he had also a great difficulty in getting his book published. And so before our talk we were told, oh actually Eric Kaufman, he's had people protesting before. We've seen, this student group said he's, a racist or a white supremacist or whatever it was. They're very ridiculous claims, actually. But still, he'd had this amount of opprobrium against him, and that meant we had to pay for it. So we had to have a security fee, and there was concern.
I feel like we've sort of been walked into this madness very slowly because they're not really outrageous ideas, are they? An academic coming to discuss this stuff. And over time, it's become the norm that you might have these concerns. So tell us about the next event.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're quite right. The ideas and the personalities that are appearing for us are not by any means. I mean, I think you'd struggle to find, a person on the street who would deem them extremists. I mean, these are part of the establishment in some ways, in the sense they're academics. But no, I mean, our next event, as we've alluded to already, is Professor Nigel Biggar, who was recently, until 2022, I believe, the Regis Professor of Theology at Oxford and a moral philosopher. And
so it doesn't really sound like a wrong one, or anybody I should be especially worried about.
He's a priest. He's an ordained member of the Church of England. So in some sense, it's a bit of an irony that we're called Modern Dissent and we're getting an ordained Church of England minister. Although his career has essentially been in, as I understand it, has been in moral philosophy and theology to some extent. And that he'll be commenting on, obviously, the legacy of the empire. Which he treated in his book, and
deconstructing decolonialism, or deconstructing colonialism rather.
Colonialism in general, particularly the British Empire. But
deconstructing decolonisation is the title. So he's had a lot of experience with evaluating empire. And that's what his book was about, obviously, but he's been quite surprised by, because really he's putting forward quite reasonable arguments about, yes, there were some bad elements, but, for instance, we tried to stop the slave trade for 80 years or so. It's actually, there are some good points and some bad points, but, he's been very surprised by, even despite putting forward this quite reasonable case, he gets so much flack and so much sort of completely unreasonable and just almost emotional, almost hatred towards him, really, simply for putting forward this case. So we want to be able to hear him, just...
Yeah,
fantastic.
Exactly. The response has been quite disproportionate, we think.
Right, fair enough. No, OK. And just before we go, where can people find out more about the event?
Right. Alex, I think...
Yeah, certainly. We have a pretty simple online presence, but we encourage everyone, especially young people, as we said at the start, but frankly, everyone's welcome to go and subscribe to our newsletter and to find, of course, the next event on June 13th.
Modern Dissent.
moderndissent.uk was the event, and /subscribe.
Brilliant. Alex and Laurie, thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you.
Next on Free Speech Nation, Rishi Sunak gets a grilling on loose women and a Premier Inn is mistaken for the Northern Lights. It's almost time for social sensation. See you in a minute.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people. To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
So, Private Members Club in London, the Garrick Club, has voted to allow women members for the first time in its history.
So it's been around for 193 years. Women were not allowed as members, but they could go in as guests of male members. But there was a vote last night. 60% said time to allow women in on equal terms.
We don't really care about being part of a stuffy boys' club, and to join us to talk about this is Georgia Gilholy. Good morning, Georgia. Do women care about this? Have The Guardian got nothing better to do?
Apparently not, considering we have a huge range of domestic and global crises ongoing at the moment. I think first and foremost, this was a campaign. It's been successful now by and for elites. I believe the chief reporter at The Guardian who spearheaded this was Amelia Gentleman.
That's right.
And in the initial coverage, she didn't even mention that her father-in-law, I believe, Stanley Johnson, obviously the father of former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, a very influential member of the Tory party. She didn't mention that he was a member, which I find bizarre. It's something that should have gone on that list if it was a list of influential members, which it was.
So hang on a minute, who's that?
Amelia Gentleman wrote the story in The Guardian. She's married to Joe Johnson, Boris's brother.
Boris's brother.
And so Stanley is a member of the Garrick, but she omitted that from her piece.
Ah.
Yeah. And I think, you know, the majority of British women won't have even heard of the Garrick Club, nor any sort of private members clubs in London. It's a very kind of elite inside thing.
It's actors, lawyers, writers.
Yeah, and I think they absolutely have their place, especially for networking with people in different careers or the same career as you. I think they have their place, holding charity events, that kind of thing, and conferences.
We already have members' clubs mixed, and that stuff is still not happening. Just putting men and women together in this one space isn't going to help women in terms of cross-gender networking.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
On Mark Dolan tonight, in My Big Opinion, Labour will take us back to the 1970s with their plan for workers' rights. It's the union barons, not Keir Starmer, who will be running Britain. In My Take at 10, Archbishop Justin Welby weighs in on another political row over the two-child benefit cap. Stick to weddings and christenings, Archbishop, plus the papers, Mark Meets and my top pundits. We're live at 9.
Time for Social Sensations, the part of the show where we look at what's been going viral this week on social media. First up is this video of when Prime Minister Rishi Sunak paid the loose women a visit and got a bit more than he bargained for.
I'm going to ask you a very simple question. I think you're a decent man. I do think you work really hard. Hats off to you for that. I think your heart's in the right place. But why do you hate pensioners? Why do you hate pensioners? That is the only conclusion that I can come to as a result of the spring budget.
That was Janet Street Porter, who says that certain measures in the spring budget do not cater for older people. Lewis, let's start with you. Do you think Rishi hates pensioners?
I don't think he hates anybody. The guy's like, he's a Team World bureaucrat. He doesn't have he reminds me of a councillor in my home borough of Southwark. That's what he reminds me of.
A specific one?
A specific one? They're all the same, these councillors. I don't want to say anything bad about councillors, but who does he represent? He's not been elected. People don't want him. They don't like him. He's not on our side. What is the question?
It was, do you think Rishi hates pensioners? Jonathan, do you think he hates pensioners?
Well, I'm not going to answer that question, but I will say that my most favourite clip from Loose Women, do you remember John McCurrick?
Was he the horse racing
guy with
Yes, I do,
yeah. He went on the show once, and he was just laying into them all like, oh, look at you, and your neck's going as well, and you've got the bingo wings on your arm. And he just lays into all of them for 5 minutes. I remember watching that at uni with my friend Nick and just crying with laughter that was on television.
That's not an answer to the question, Jonathan.
Yeah, but I preface my answer with...
Yeah, by saying this is not going to be an answer to the question, but it still doesn't make it any better.
Do I think Rishi hates pensioners? Yeah, I think he's filled with contempt for anyone over 65.
I think Janet Street Porter hates Rishi. She was going for him there, wasn't she?
Well, the fact is, if she wants to be a pensioner, she should look more like a pensioner. She looked quite good there.
She looks fantastic. Doesn't she look amazing?
Yeah.
OK, next up is this video from last week when the Northern Lights made a spectacular appearance across the country, or so these two strangers thought.
I did. Oh, my God, I want to continue to it. Tell me, we've been catfished. Have we been catfished? If it was a Northern Light, yeah, it's a golden.
So they were catfished. These guys thought they were following the Northern Lights and they ended up at a Premier Inn. Now, we've all ended up at a Premier Inn when we didn't plan to, haven't we, Jonathan?
We have done, yeah. I thought you weren't going to mention that. Yeah, no, I remember doing this story on Headliners and they were coming back from a pharmacological ball. That's obviously the story behind the story.
Pharmacological ball.
Yeah, what did I say?
The fact is that the Northern Lights, we're always getting ions, whatever. It comes from the sun. Basically, we are a sun. We're attracting electricity, which gives us this light. It's going on all the time.
But the point is that didn't come from the sun. That came from the Premier Inn.
Oh, OK. I missed that point then.
They were excited because people get very excited about these lights, don't they? Our producer Martin sent me some photos, and they were indeed in the palette of the colours of the Premier Inn.
Yeah.
Did you watch the lights?
No, I saw Martin's, a friend of ours, Martin's, or our boss.
He just sent them round. Did you see them?
Yeah, I saw them.
Did you see them with your bare eyes?
No, I didn't.
Did anybody see them with their eyes? You did. What were they like?
Well, it was in London, so very, very thin.
Sounds like a Premier Inn to me. You're the first person I've met who's actually seen them. Brilliant. Next, these two have gone viral by getting their groove on. My spirit takes flight, 'cause I'm alive. When you call on me, when I hear you breathe. OK, some people dancing. What do we think?
I think there's quite a lot of that online on the various social media
I don't
apps.
know whether these are a special couple doing that. Does anybody know? Are they famous? Does anyone know who they are? I haven't. That's the first time I've seen it.
They look like GBNews viewers.
So...
No, they can dance, yeah.
I like that idea. Yeah, tweet us your GBNews Keith and Linda dance routines.
Are they Keith and Linda?
Well, no, but that's a phrase for our viewership, isn't it? Keith and Linda.
Oh, is it?
As coined by, I can't remember who.
Anton Deck, was it?
Yes, exactly, Anton Deck.
Yeah, look, it's very nice
Reclaiming
dancing,
it.
but I don't want to see it.
You don't want to see it?
It's our word now.
Oh, Keith and Linda. He gets one word, Keith and Linda. So not a fan of the dancing, not moved. It's amazing what goes viral now, isn't it?
No, I'm not interested in seeing other people get attention for themselves.
That's true, isn't it? You struggle to go to performances you're not on.
I'm not interested in other people entertaining me. I want to be the entertainment.
Is your TikTok just you dancing?
Yes, because I didn't get enough love and attention from my own parents, so I have to do it. So when they're doing it, I'm thinking to myself, well, why didn't I do that? But I didn't do it. So, you know...
There's still time, Lewis. We could do it afterwards.
Yeah, there's still time, but it's...
OK, finally, we had a bit of a laugh at Rishi Sunak earlier, so let's check out Sir Keir Starmer at Question Time this week.
Mr. Speaker, he must be the only tech brother on the continent who can't work a debit card or send an email.
I'm not sure what he could... What did he call him? A tech?
It's meant to be tech bro.
It's meant to be tech bro.
Well,
and what did he say? Tech bo?
Yeah, apparently someone wrote it for him and he'd not prepped.
Someone wrote it for him and he hadn't pre-read it. Well, you wouldn't catch me doing that. So what do you think of Keir's blunder there?
Keir, look, he's just he's just there, isn't he? He's like coffee rings on the table. You get used to him eventually.
Lewis, do you care about tech bros and bows?
I've never seen that before. I'm not interested in that guy either. I'm not interested in anybody. I just want to go back to America. I think I've had enough. I've been here for 24 years. People, I haven't taken with the audience. It hasn't worked out. It hasn't. The show's over now, and it's about time you pay attention. It's like he's, you know what? It doesn't matter what he does. He's going to be the next prime minister. So just let the guy be the next prime minister.
OK, bro. Now the final part where we talk through your unfiltered dilemmas. Our first dilemma is from Rachel, and she says, my other half took me out to afternoon tea for our anniversary. At first I was thrilled and really touched, but then he pulled out a gift card to pay for the bill. I'm annoyed at the lack of effort, or am I being unreasonable? Jonathan, do you think she's being unreasonable, or is that fair?
Well,
he's being cheap.
I think that's perfectly reasonable. It's still his money. But then I got in trouble today. I was at a barbecue and I got told off because I shouldn't be talking about this. But on my holiday, I didn't propose, but I let my girlfriend know that I wasn't going to propose. But I got her a nice necklace saying, yeah, you're not getting any other jewellery this trip, so here's a nice necklace. And then all the girls in the girl group had a massive go at me. That's fine, right? I bought a necklace and I was nice.
I think you should email into GB News next week. That sounds very complicated. Do you think he's in trouble for that?
Of course he's in trouble, because you're hanging out with women.
Yeah.
You're going to get women are never happy. They aren't happy when you ask them to marry you and you don't ask them to marry you. They just are not happy people. And there's nothing you can do.
Did she buy the gift card?
So, well, this is it. There's always missing information, isn't there? Is she being unreasonable? We don't know.
Yes, of course she's being unreasonable.
Of course she's being unreasonable. She got a free meal or whatever. That he took money out of his own pocket. Yeah, it was a gift card, but it was, when I get cash in my pocket, it's got the Queen's face on it, A
gift card, bring it.
And if it could, it'd have your face on it, Lewis. We know that. Our second dilemma is from Martin. My work colleague Noah has the weirdest lunch almost every day. Tomato soup with a load of rice in it, washed down by a fizzy drink. Have you heard of a more bizarre meal? Yes, I have. Obviously, I have. Yeah. I work with Lewis Schaefer.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. That's that's a standard meal, rice and tomato with rice. That's a soup, Heinz soup. I don't know if they have it in this country. They have soup in this country, which is like a tease of a meal. You're sitting there starving, and it's like wet and shit. Sorry.
I would like to apologise for Lewis Schaefer's language there.
I'd like to support it.
No, right, Jonathan.
I know, I'm letting it go because I'm so mad at this audience. They've been absolutely horrible the entire show. I've been so supportive of you.
You've been so supportive. It's very strange. Frankly, I think he's ill. Jonathan, what do you think about this person's odd meal? It's not stranger than Lewis.
Something I probably wouldn't have myself. Tomato rice soup. My dad makes it.
Yeah, with a fizzy drink. That's what people have. I don't think it's good for you. It's the reason the NHS. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's the reason the NHS is crumbling, because people are having food like this. They think, oh, this is vegan. This is going to be good. This is made out of tomatoes, which are red, it's good, whatever.
Right, OK, moving on. I would like to apologise again there for Lewis's language. I'm just going to move on to our final dilemma this week, and it's from Kirsty. The guy I'm talking to is quite the texter. He sent 18 messages in one go, including 4 lengthy voice notes. Only issue is I haven't actually met him yet. Is that a bit over the top at this stage in the relationship?
Oh, yeah, he's going to wear her skin. Yeah, it's complete.
He's going to wear her skin?
Yeah, this is absolutely psychotic behaviour. I never reply to a woman's text message, ever. Just don't reply and then leave them wanting more.
It's a long time since you've been on a first date, isn't it, Luke?
I think
because you're happily connected to a person, but it's always changing with you. I don't want to.
The answer is no. That is not true.
What's the question?
Still available, ladies, any takers out there. Is that this is I think a reference to Baby Reindeer, the TV show with the comedian.
Right, we're all thinking about it. She said,
I didn't send any messages to the guy, just 18 or something, which sounds like a lot to us, but if you've been accused of sending 48,000 or whatever, 48,000, it's not that many.
I think you've got to judge it carefully, haven't you? And voice notes are a nightmare. You know who leaves me long voice notes is Mr. Bruce Devlin.
Yeah.
They're very dangerous, and you can't open them in public.
Is that true?
Oh, absolutely. I've been burned.
Play one now.
Yeah.
No, I won't be doing that.
Why does he not send me any? Because he's not interested in me.
I don't think Bruce is interested in me, Lewis. That's definitely not Bruce's style.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, personally, I'm not a fan of the voice message. What do you think, Jonathan?
I like a voice message. I can double speed it. I often find that when I'm watching people talk, it's like they're going in half time. So if I can
Sped
double
up
speed it, the
to
best.
match your brain. Fantastic.
I'm against it. You're basically saying...
Thank you, Lewis. Thank you for joining us for Free Speech Nation. This was the week when the government announced plans to ban sex education for under-9s. Labour said it would force doctors and nurses to work weekends, and judges were revealed to be thinking of ditching the wigs over cultural insensitivity issues. Thank you to my panel, Jonathan Cogan and Lewis Schaefer, and to all of my brilliant guests this evening. And if you want to join... Yeah, you can give yourself a round of applause. Oh, lovely. And if you want to join us live... If you want to join us live in the studio and be part of our wonderful audience, you can. Please go to www.sroaudiences.com. Stay tuned for the brilliant Mark Dolan tonight, and stay tuned also for headliners at 11 p.m. Good night.
Warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead, sunny spells on Monday, but it is going to be turning more unsettled as we go through the week. At the moment, we've got a ridge of high pressure extending out towards the west, bringing settled conditions for the rest of this evening and overnight. So looking ahead, we have got low cloud, mist and fog moving its way in from the North Sea. That will progress further inland with a bit of a breeze coming into East Anglia. Further towards the west, that's where we'll see the clearest skies, and Northern Ireland may see some mist and fog developing. Chilly underneath the clearest skies, but elsewhere holding up at around 10 or 11 degrees. So quite a murky start out there for many of us to start Monday morning. Best of the sunshine first thing is going to be across western parts, so even into western Scotland, but holding on to some sea fog and low cloud the further east you go. Like I said, some low cloud, mist and fog across Northern Ireland. That will gradually lift and break, and then bright skies across the west, but low cloud lingering through the morning. But as we go through the rest of the morning, that low cloud should start to lift, break, melt its way back towards coastal areas, maybe taking a bit of time to do so, but elsewhere turning dry, plenty of sunshine on offer. We will still see a few showers breaking out, especially across parts of western Northern Ireland. Some of these could be heavy at times, and potentially even northern parts of Wales, but elsewhere feeling pleasant in the sunshine, where we do see it up to 20 or 22 degrees. As we go through Tuesday, again, some low cloud coming into eastern areas. Then it's a mixture of sunny spells, but some heavy showers breaking out, especially focused across the west as we go through the afternoon. And then into Wednesday, we've got a low pressure system out towards the east, could bring heavy spells of rain and generally rather unsettled.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the biggest cash prize we've given away to date. An incredible £20,000 that you could use however you like. And because it's totally tax-free, every single penny will be in your bank account to do whatever you like with. £20,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours this summer. Hurry, you've got to be in it to win it. For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text PRIZE to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My
guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Going live, it's 9 o'clock on television, on radio and online in the United Kingdom and across the world. This is Mark Dolan Tonight. In my big opinion, Labour will take us back to the 1970s with their plan for workers' rights. It's the union barons, not Sir Keir Starmer, who will be running Britain. In the big story, is former Chancellor Nadhim Zahawi right that the Tories made a huge mistake getting rid of Boris Johnson? We'll be heading to the United States and getting the views of a former top aide to Margaret Thatcher. As King Charles announces his first foreign trip following his cancer diagnosis, we'll get reaction in the studio from legendary royal author Angela Levin. It's the